So for those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Timo. I'm one of the co-founders and also managing directors of LFCA. But I'm not the only speaker today. We have two amazing guests in our round. The first one will be Charlotte from B Corp. B Corp is very well known to our community. We have a lot of certified B corporations already in our ranks, and we regularly get questions about B Corp, how can we get certified? And I think it's a very relevant topic for us. For those of you who don't know B Corp, they have done an amazing job in setting a standard for companies that really care about their workers, that care about the environment. So I'm very excited to hear from Charlotte what she can tell us today. And next up will be Jared from Canva. Canva is one of our biggest Australian members from the Australian chapter. Canva is a really big company already with more than 2,000 employees, and I think Jared told me they're planning to scale up to 10,000 in the next year. So big challenges ahead, of course, also in terms of environment. And Jared is leading the sustainability department at Canva, and he will share some of the insights from his work. And I'm particularly excited about Jared's appearance because we met a few weeks ago in one of our mastermind groups, and Canva is very active there as well in our community, so it will be interesting to hear that as well. And last but not least, I will share an announcement about next year's Time for Climate Action campaign, which is a big campaign that we are launching around Earth Day. So please stay until the very end to make sure that you don't miss this. But first of all, before we dive into the content, just a very quick update on the numbers. So we've been pretty much heads down focusing on product and strategy in the last quarter, but we still added quite a lot of members to the community. So we added 224 new members in the last couple of months. We are active in 34 countries with a total of 47 people supporting in our chapters. And I really want to stress this and say thank you, a big thumbs up to everyone who's doing this, because these are volunteers. These are unpaid people who are supporting us, and without them, it wouldn't be possible to run such a big community, a worldwide global community with such a small core team. And we've also seen the counter, our carbon saved counter, jump significantly in the last quarter, about 20%. This is mainly because we have quite a few companies that are with us for more than a year already reporting on their progress, and I think it's really great to see and a good sign that things are moving forward. One more thing, very exciting partnership announcement that I can make today with TechZero. TechZero is a UK-based initiative that has a pretty similar approach to climate action like we do. And we met a couple of months ago, and we started talking about how we can potentially collaborate. Because if you think about it, they have a very similar target group. They have a very similar mission. They have about like 200, 300 companies now in their community with some of the biggest UK startups, Revolut, Wise, Hopin, and many others. And we said it kind of doesn't make sense to compete for the same target group if you have the same mission. So what we decided to do is that we share what we have built with their community in order to level up our game together. So companies joining the TechZero initiative are now using our platform to take climate action. So we share the content with them, but we also profit because, of course, they share back their learnings with our community. We can make sure that there's a true cross-border collaboration between us and them. And I think it's an amazing sign. It shows that if we put our heads together, we can truly achieve more than if we would look at each other as competitors. But now, coming to the most interesting part of this first presentation, I would like to share a few words to get all of you excited about what's to come from LFCA in the next couple of weeks and months. We've been really working hard on our strategic positioning. You all know that there's a lot happening in the climate space, new initiatives popping up, new startups working in the same space. And we really felt the need to sharpen a bit our edge to make sure that people understand what is it that LFCA can provide, what is it that our community can provide also going forward to the next couple of years. So we won't really have the time to make a proper deep dive on all of this, and there will be plenty of material shared in the upcoming weeks via email, but also on our new homepage. So see this more as a teaser to get you excited about what's to come. Now, when we started to revise our approach to climate action, we made a few general considerations at first. So we said, first of all, the whole approach must be science-backed. We don't have the resources to reinvent the wheel. We have to make sure that we build on top of what's already there. There are great initiatives, scientific initiatives that set the standards in the climate action world. And there's also this whole ecosystem of new startups and companies evolving. So we have to make sure that whatever we build, whatever we focus on, that this is rather complementing than replacing any of these solutions. The second point is we have to really focus on the pain points. We have to see what is it in our community, what is it that we can help with, what are the issues that companies are facing, and how can we provide the value to solve these issues. And third of all, and I think this feeds very much into the first few points, that the whole approach must be centered around the community. We're a non-profit organization. We will never have the biggest tech team. We're not a VC financed startup, even though we have a few VCs donating to us. But we will also never have an army of scientists, right? Because we're not a government financed organization. But we do have something that others don't have. We have collective intelligence. We have collective knowledge in our community. And if we put this at the center of our work, if we relentlessly focus on this part, then we can provide the real value. So let's start with the pain point or the problem. So we had countless interviews over the last couple of months, but also over the last couple of years with you, with our community, to understand what are the biggest hurdles when it comes to taking climate action. And we learned that it's usually not the measurement process, because there's great solutions out there to help you with this. And it's also not these very, let's say, simple actions like changing your energy provider that we are preaching since day one. The real challenge usually arises as soon as companies try to take a business-specific change, right? So that could be for a software as a service company, moving to a cloud region with a bigger amount of renewable energy, or for an e-commerce company, it could be completely different. It could be about decreasing emissions on the last mile. And it makes sense, right? The more specific you go, the less material you will find online, and the harder it is to implement the change. But we also learned something very interesting and important over the last couple of months, that as soon as you divide the community into cohorts based on their business activity and also based on the challenges that they are facing, you realize that these companies are not so alone with these challenges. So it is not just, I don't know, a Flaschenpost thinking about last mile delivery. There's also Canva, there's Idealo, there's Shop Apotheke, and many others. So if we can bring these people together, then we can truly allow them to exchange knowledge, and we can really speed up this transformation. Now, this is the theory, right? And it's always nice to think about something, but we have to see, how does this translate into the real world? How can we take this idea and put it out into a practical shape? And most of you know that we've been testing this approach in the past couple of months with one of our biggest cohort, with the e-commerce cohort. And we did 3 simple steps to get there. So first of all, we developed a guide. We sat down with the community members, and we also sat down with experts from the field, and we distilled 13 actionable items that are relevant and most impactful for e-commerce companies when it comes to reducing their carbon emissions. And we put these actions on our member platform, and we asked companies to commit on them. So we said, you have 6 months, 12 months, which actions do you want to implement? And to be honest, our OKR for the end of Q3 was to get 40 commitments. We got 80. So from a 200 member-based cohort, we got 80 commitments, which was amazing to see. So really good sign already there. And now what we did is, based on these answers, based on the commitments that these companies took, we started to form mastermind groups. And these mastermind groups are regular meetings once a month, companies that are working towards the same goal. So a very specific goal that you have, and people who really care about what is happening in this area. And I have to be honest, I've been part of a few of those meetings, and it was really amazing. Like I didn't expect this, but the spirit in these meetings, it was so collaborative. People were sharing their knowledge and they were brainstorming solutions. And it was great that in just these 2 months that we've been running those groups, we didn't have any churn. People stick with it, and people are making progress. So this is a very positive sign for us. Of course, there's a long way still to go, but a very positive sign of interest and of potential. And now we don't stop there, because as I said, there's tons of knowledge being created in these groups. So people sharing lists of providers to solve a certain problem. And we are now making sure that all of this knowledge that gets created is fed back into the system. So if you look in the member platform now, there's a new feature under every action item. You can see a comment section, a section where you can upload material and where you can share your own learnings. So we make sure that all of the knowledge that gets created stays in the community, and we can really build up this knowledge hub with very relevant information, very specific information, helping companies to speed up their transformation. Now, as I said in the beginning, this is just a little bit of a teaser, and there's a lot more to come in the upcoming weeks. We will roll out these mastermind groups to a bigger audience, form more groups. We are launching all of this with a new homepage, new logo, a new brand, lots of exciting things to come. We are working on a Scope 3 measurement guide with the help of our partners. And we're also introducing a science-backed leveling and rewarding system to incentivize you to take further action. So lots of stuff to come. I'm really excited about this. And that was the first part of our event today. And I would just finish this one with the really important note. I talked a lot about community now, right? And community, I think it's really important for us to understand we are the community, right? You are the community. You take this time today in the morning to join this call. And it's really important to share all of these learnings. Go to your green team, talk to them, make sure that all of the knowledge that you have inside of your green teams, all of the efforts that you do, share it with us. Make sure that others can progress in the spirit of the challenge. So thanks a lot. And now I'm heading over to Charlotte from B Corp. If you have questions in the end, now the time might be a bit short. If you have questions, write them in the chat. We'll make sure to answer all of them. Potentially we have a bit of time after this event to go a bit more into detail. Thanks a lot.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Timo. That's got me really revved up, and I feel really lucky to get to join all of you today and feel properly part of this community snack wherever we are in the world. So thank you. It's also just amazing to start today thinking about collective knowledge. I feel like I can feel it in the room. So thank you for having me here. Brilliant. Okay, so I think Timo helped me out and gave me a bit of an introduction, so I don't need to tell you all about the story of B Corporation, and amazing to have so many B Corps with us in the community and on the line right now. So do just give me a thumbs up in the in your reactions box if you're a B Corp too. So welcome. To anyone who doesn't know about the B Corp movement, this is us in a whistle-stop summary. So essentially, we've been working with businesses since 2007, working with businesses all around the world now in 77 countries, as Timo said, just to give them an opportunity to really think, what would it look like if we reinvented what business meant, so that we could truly use business as a force for good. So that's really our unifying goal as a B Corp community. There are so many reasons why we know that business needs to change, the ways in which the system is broken from a social justice and inequality perspective, and crucially, of course, the impact that we have on the planet. So how can we restructure that? That is the mission of the B Corp movement, and we are really walking side by side with you all in everything that you're doing on climate work. So huge thanks and amazing work spreading this great approach. I think the thing that most excited me about the B Corp movement when I got involved back in 2015 to try and found B Lab UK and bring the community to the United Kingdom, the piece that really struck me was that any B Corp who joins our community signs this declaration. Now, I don't know how many people are fast readers here, but maybe you just want to take a little moment to have a look at the B Corp Declaration of Interdependence. Yeah, lovely. So the things that I really like about this is just this understanding that we are all dependent upon each other and responsible for each other and for future generations. And so that is the whole approach that the B Corp movement takes when we work together to get good work done on changing our impact on people and planet. If you're unfamiliar with the B Corp structure, essentially, in order to become a B Corp, companies pass this really comprehensive impact analysis, and they are scored in 5 areas. Once they've met the requirements of reaching really strong levels of best practice across those areas, they can then certify as a B Corp. If they go through the mission lock process, that means they change their legal articles, their DNA, to commit them to being a business that is acting in the interests of all stakeholders, not just shareholders. And that's a really vital distinction. And then, of course, you sign that Declaration of Interdependence and you join a global movement that is committed to collaboration rather than competition. So that's what we are all about, if you are unfamiliar with it. And these are those 5 areas I mentioned. So our B Corps are really trying to see how they can compete to be the best for the world rather than the best in the world. And they're competing on, what's the impact that they can have on their people, on the environment, on the communities in which they operate, with their customers, and really making sure that they have the governance structures in place to use businesses they'd like. So that is us. Why am I here today? I guess I'm here to talk a bit about some of the things that the B Corp movement have been learning and what we'd really want to explore more. So the role that I play in the B Corp movement, I'm a freelance facilitator and consultant. So I work both with B Lab Global and also with B Lab UK on specific projects. With the global team, I've been working on something we call our B Lab Global Climate Task Force. And this is a group of the leaders of the B Corp movements from all around the world. So as I mentioned, we're operating over 70 countries. So we have global representation from all continents, and they learn from their markets. What are the things that businesses in our communities really want to improve on when it comes to climate? And the spirit of the Climate Task Force, we formed something called the B Corp Climate Collective. And through that community, we share best practice and we do a lot of learning. And one of the things we launched was a pledge to invite any company who would like, B Corp or not, to commit with us to get to net zero by 2030. And this is just such an exciting area for me because we have so many businesses making this bold commitment for 2030. And not everyone, of course, is entirely sure how they're going to get there. But this is the spirit of a community of trust that Timo was talking about before, working towards this shared goal to see how we can really get to net positive sooner rather than later. So that's a lot of the work that I do with the B Corp movement, is supporting the B Corp Climate Collective. And we've been really getting stuck into lots of big projects around this. So how do we get to net zero while putting people first? And what does climate justice look like in that journey? And that's what I'm going to talk about a little more today. So I was also asked just to reference the fact that with the B Corp movement, I've been in Glasgow recently for COP26, and I was given the tough challenge of sharing my highlights from COP26 and the things that I really noticed just as a backdrop to this work. So I'm going to attempt to do that now. Clearly, it was a crazy busy fortnight in Glasgow, so much going on. And as I kind of took the train home, the thing I realized I was reflecting on was that, yes, I was quite frustrated with how the discussions had gone from a state actor level. I was disappointed by the ways that the wording had been changed, and I guess how much the lack of boldness in lots of the areas that I wanted to see. But I was noticing in the weeks that followed in November that I was still feeling hopeful. And I think that was really because of this kind of multi-ecosystem approach that really felt like it was in full force across that city during those weeks in Glasgow. What I see is that for the systems change that we need to create globally to be the kind of system that is really working in harmony with the planet, we need lots of ecosystems to thrive. And I saw those ecosystems thriving in all sorts of different ways in Glasgow, whether it was the strength of youth voice, whether it was the way that scientists were collaborating in an interdisciplinary way with artists, whether it was the role of cities, the amazing C40 group of cities who, whilst they're national leaders might not have been taking the steps they wanted to, those cities were pioneering what it looks like to be a pace setter city and to make changes to their own infrastructure, transport systems that could really push the needle for their own countries. So there are all sorts of exciting demonstrations of what thriving ecosystems look like across the business community, amazing examples of collaboration like we have on this call today. In pockets and industries, we had launches of finance coalitions, all sorts of organizations cropping up to find ways to work in an interdisciplinary way together. And of course, the activist movement, which had such a great impact on really encouraging conversations to go further. So I guess that's my main reflection. We need many ecosystems to thrive if we're going to do this work well. We truly need a movement of movements. And the other piece that was so encouraging to me in Glasgow was the presence of the justice conversation throughout everything. So all across the city, literally, you can see in the beautiful artwork on the top left here by Still Moving, this conversation around loss and damage, around climate justice was present in so many different forms. Many of you hopefully would have heard Vanessa Nicati speaking at various occasions, but this conversation around the importance of loss and damage. We didn't see it come through as strongly as we should have done in the state agreements, but I'm hoping that that's really going to encourage the conversation to have moved on by the time we get to COP27. And that just goes to this point of the importance, of course, of looking at net zero, but I work with a wonderful colleague who says we can't get to zero by running people over. And that's really the spirit of climate justice, which is what I'm going to get stuck into today. So the B Corp movement has been a proud partner of the Race to Zero commitment, and we've really enjoyed, again, working with a big umbrella partner in many businesses around the world to see how we can learn together. And one of the things that we noticed as a community is that lots of our B Corps were saying to us, we know we need to root our climate action in the justice approach. We know we need to look at people and planet, but we don't know how. So pretty much this time last year, as a community, we decided that we really wanted to take a step to support our businesses, to think about what does it look like practically to root your actions in a climate justice approach. You can see we were lucky enough to have a great partnership with the Saïd Business School at Oxford and with the Race to Zero team, and we worked with a B Corp called Provoke to pull together something we humbly call the Climate Justice Playbook for Business version 1. Essentially, we had an opportunity to work with a range of businesses. You can see a few of them here across our amazing network. And just what we wanted to do was to take an approach of doing a landscape analysis. Where are we now? What do our companies know? And how can we use that to inform better best practice across the movement and beyond? And really my favorite thing that emerged in the whole of the Climate Justice Playbook work was this very simple graphic. Now, it maybe looks simple, but there's a lot captured here. Fundamentally, to think about how we can root our climate action in a climate justice approach, we all need to make a mindset shift. And if you look at this chart in two sections, on the left-hand side, we have some behaviors that are associated with an extractive and exploitative approach. They're things that actually we've all been taught to do because they've been seen to be efficient and it's how we've made progress. They can be things like a command and control corporate-led approach. They can be things like really narrow KPIs and focuses on deadlines and checking the boxes. They can be this assumption that maybe there's a one-size-all-fits approach. And what we really noticed was that the people who are making the best progress in moving to a climate justice approach actually showed more of these equitable and regenerative behaviors on the right-hand side. So shifting from this kind of myopic focus, maybe homogenous decision-making, to more of a multidimensional, truly systemic, intersectional approach that recognizes that there are multiple truths, that knows that we need to do deep listening and collaboration to work out how we can solve something together, thinks about context, that knows that perspective matters, and that is focused on continuously learning, that's not linear, that's comfortable with uncertainty, and with a gradual evolution approach. You can download the Climate Justice Playbook for free from the website and dig more into this chart, but I hope it just gives you a sense of what this work was all about. And we also wanted to get practical. So what does climate justice look like? Whoever you are, ultimately any organization of any shape or size can take a climate justice approach to its climate action. And we highlighted 6 areas where you can do that really powerfully: with your employees and their families, with other aligned businesses that you work with your suppliers, with the proximate communities in which you operate, with activists who are already leaning into this work and have the expertise, and also with policymakers. So throughout the playbook, you'll find rich examples of how to do that in different ways. I promised to give a very high-level tour of a few of the examples that stood out to me. So what I was so impressed by was the way that businesses of any shape and size were taking action on climate justice. We saw Pucker Tea and Herbs doing some amazing work with their farmers in their supply chain to take a real justice approach to how they could support their farmers to strengthen their living, and actually working with other businesses who operated in the same farms and regions, who shared the same water sources, to see how together as a farming community they could better meet the needs of that region. We also saw businesses working in urban areas, listening to their employees, realizing that asthma was a big problem in polluted areas of the urban cities. This was Guayaki, who then switched to an electric fleet to try and tackle a climate injustice issue around pollution in the urban areas in which they distributed, that their employees were able to tell them about. We saw lots of organizations listening to their employees and also speaking out to the communities that they work with through their blogs, through their all their approaches with their customers to see if they could discuss this topic more. You can see here a lovely example from Seventh Generation handing their blog over to experts from the climate justice movement who could tell the story. Seventh Gen didn't need to learn it all, they could just pass the mic. We also saw brilliant examples of businesses making space in all sorts of ways. If they held a conference, who do they give an opportunity to speak? Is it a different voice that isn't normally put at the center? How do we make sure that those marginalized voices of people who are truly impacted by the worst effects of climate change are able to speak and share with us what needs to be done because they are speaking from an area of experience? And the last example I just wanted to touch on was the one at the top. Where climate justice comes alive is through collaboration. I think I've mentioned that. And we saw lots of unlikely partnerships cropping up to really tackle justice issues. And I mentioned pollution having a really unjust effect. And often that can be the result of poor waste streams, as I'm sure lots of you are aware. And one of the partnerships that arose that really struck me was when Danone baby food worked with Ella's Kitchen, another baby food brand. They both had a recycling challenge. And together, rather than competing, they collaborated to work with a local authority in the UK to tackle that recycling infrastructure issue. So for me, this was just a beautiful example of what climate justice collaboration really looks like, finding opportunities to work in unlikely partnerships, to focus on people and planet together, and to think in a truly intersectional way. So I will pause there because I know we're short on time and I want to leave a bit of time for questions, but I hope that has given you a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of the work that we've been doing on climate justice, what we think matters, and we would love to work with you and learn with you about what you are doing in all of these areas, because I'm sure there's lots of mastermind group potential for these kinds of discussions. So thank you, Timo.
Thanks a lot, Charlotte. Thanks for these amazing insights. Jared, we can see you and hear you, so enjoy.
I will start off by just saying that what I want to share with you is the Canva's sustainability journey and a little bit of context around about Canva. A bunch of the stuff that you're going to see in there is not new. We haven't necessarily invented anything or done anything new. We're just sort of trying to figure out how we can have the impact through our presence and who we are. Just wanted to just kick things off. Like in Australia, we've got a bit of a custom where we acknowledge the country that we're on. Australia is a place with about 250, 60 years of colonial history. And so it's very, we're known as one country, we have one flag, but pre the colonial era, it was actually made up of 2 to 250 other countries, and each country with very distinct, unique cultures and knowledges that have been in Australia for about 60,000 years, some people say. So the acknowledgement of country is a tradition that we have to help sort of mend and reconcile some of the difficult parts of Australia's culture. So in Australia, we like to acknowledge the country that we're on. So Canva's head office is Gadigal country of the Eora Nation. Where I'm talking to you from now is just up the road a bit. It's the Wangal country, which is also in the Eora Nation. And so not only is the acknowledgement country a nice way to sort of start things off, it actually forms some of the thinking and the approaches to how we've come to where we are in Canva. Really quick intro. My name's Jared. Canva I've been at Canva for about 2 years. Canva's only 8 years old-ish. In that 8 years, it's enjoyed pretty significant growth. There's a bunch of stats there. We've got really good valuations. But one of the interesting things about Canva is not only do we do all these big numbers and achieve great things, we're only about 2,000 people. And like Timo said, our population is, the headcount is growing. But we're kind of the size of a large school. And we're spread out all over the planet. We've got 4 offices. We've got offices in 4 regions. That's growing quite significantly next year. So we're in this really unique place where we're having an impact, but we're not really that big. in the sense of headcounts and stuff. And so it also gives us a really beautiful opportunity to set some really ambitious goals. We don't have the historical issues of burning car tires for the last 15 years or flying airplanes. We're a software company with a significant print side of the business, but it means that embarking on adventurous goals really early in on our journey does two things. It means that we can sort of make a bit of noise about what we're doing, but it also means that the impact that we can have goes beyond just Canva's footprint. And that's a really important piece that we've been working on. This is the mission statement that was being worked with a bunch of people over the last sort of few months. And one of the key words there is to lead the way. And the way that is, leadership has got this sort of aspirational thing where people want to be the leader, but the way that it's sort of framed in Canva, leaders don't walk alone. We work in collaborations. There's a bunch of people showing leadership. It's not like, Canva is going to be the one that's going to fix all the problems. It's like, we know what bit we can do, and we want to really double down on the impact that we can have in that. So the whole leadership thing is an interesting sort of conversation to unpack. Canva's also got a bunch of values, and the level of resourcing and attention that goes into making sure that these values actually manifest in the culture in the company is actually really quite significant. And it was the thing that actually made me join the company. When I was looking at it, I was like, oh yeah, I'm used to seeing buzzwords, but the way Canva approaches things such as set crazy big goals and be a good human is actually quite significant. Our sustainability journey is relatively new, and like most people that are starting out, the biggest challenge is like, how do you get things going? And so one of the first things that we did was looked deep into the culture of, not that deep really, we looked at the culture of Canva, and one of the things that it was a really amazing mobilizer, and I don't think I need to spend too much time talking on this, it's just the idea of collaboration, getting lots of people involved. So one of the things that Canva spends a lot of time building is we've got 400 clubs that meet regularly. So we establish sustainability clubs. Again, nothing new, but what was really awesome in there was that by building these presences and making them region specific, it really empowered the regions to speak to problems that are happening directly with them. And the Philippines and the team in Manila, they are awesome. The Philippines Sustainability Club, the amount of amazing things that comes out of that Slack feed is really quite inspiring. The way that we engage with the clubs is that we use them as a place to drop information, to create moments of activation and engagement, but it's also a source where people can go and ask questions. And in mining those questions, we're also able to understand what sort of things inspire, ignite, or make our team members excited. While we're doing all those sort of soft touches, we did start to look at our data. And when it came to communicating our footprint with our teams, one of the ways that we framed it was that we avoided language like scope 3s and boundaries and anything too technical, and really focused on trying to give context to the individual reading it. And so instead of sharing broadly what our scopes were, what our scope 3 footprint was, we sort of started to go, well, let's look at things that people understand. Our data, when we first started out, was really scrappy, so it's really poor. So there's a bunch of caveats that went with that. But what it meant is that then we started the conversation, once we sort of said, these activities that you can understand are where the emissions are coming from. We then established sort of 3 areas to measure them in the company. And these 3 areas have got different significance to different teams. And what I mean by that is, if you're looking after facilities and construction, relevance is your emissions per employee. If you're an engineer or marketing and engagement wanting to grow our MAUs, our monthly average users, then the MAU thing is going to have more importance. So in communicating our goals, we actually started to form just at very high level who we thought would be able to segment into helping us achieve big, crazy goals. Even though we had poor data, we were able to look at some of the improvements that we had made in just one calendar year. And a lot of this came from energy supply, data supply, and a few other sort of things. But what we started to do was, by segmenting these things out, we're actually starting to create moments of engagement within the team that people can get excited about. Then we came up with this crazy idea that what would it look like if we completely decarbonized our entire operations? And by decarbonizing, we know that this is one of those ones where I don't know whether or not it's possible. Like, it's that thing of like, you know, it means that all of our suppliers need to be carbon neutral. It's like, you know, there's a huge amount to unpack there. But when we sort of looked at what that would look like, it actually started to feel a little bit inspirational and just the right amount of hard. Like, it was kind of a little bit impossible, but why don't we give it a go? And so then we started to map out, like, you know, what would it look like by 2028, 2030, whatever it may be? How do we get our emissions to, not just our emissions, but how do we work with our supply chain to get those emissions down? There is audio to this video, and I'll share this afterwards and you can have a listen to it. But the reason why I wanted to show this here is that I hit the first major blockage in Canva's sustainability journey. And that was, I didn't have any resources. I didn't have buy-in from leadership. I had these great ideas and these crazy questions. So Canva's growing so quickly. I often use the analogy that leadership is trying to take sips of water from a garden hose when it comes to information. So I did something that was a little bit unorthodox, and I created like a 6-minute video with the help of the people that just outlined some crazy big goals and some 3 very specific asks. And I stuck it with a big red internal use only, do not share. And then about 2.5 weeks went by. I didn't hear anything, so I was worried that I'd stuffed up or I'd sort of, you know, spent the money wrong. 2.5 weeks later, Cliff, one of the founders, publicly published this approval to all my asks on LinkedIn. So I went from like, oh my God, have I stuffed up by, you know, being cheeky or doing this video, to all of a sudden every cat and their dog on LinkedIn saw what crazy goals we had put in there. So the last couple of months have been pretty hectic. Now that we had everyone's attention, what I needed to do was to get really specific. And so I'm going to skip through these fairly quickly because I'm really mindful of time. I again spent a lot of time making sure that we understood what climate change meant to the individual, and I didn't assume any knowledge. And I think that sometimes people get intimidated by not knowing enough. So when you hear things like numbers and percentages and emissions, so this is a graph that I stole and stuck my face and my kid's face on it, but it contextualizes what's going to happen to me, my children, and my grandkids, and why I'm so passionate about it. And then also just sort of made sure that everybody understood that, like, you know, it's not just a case of getting warmer. It's talking about destabilizing planetary life supporting systems, lack of food. It's like, it's nasty. But I didn't dwell too much on that. I spent a lot of time with the various teams talking about the different opportunities, and I sort of bucketed them into 3 areas of focus. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to get carbon neutral, and we'll do that by purchasing offsets. Another piece that we're doing is we want to figure out how to go beyond that, because we're a very privileged tech company that's standing on the shoulders of giants. Canva hasn't got to where it is now by just inventing the internet. We acknowledge the fact that we've got our success because a bunch of people have done stuff before us. So going beyond net zero acknowledges our place of privilege, and it also makes sure that we're actually, we're digging into what the actual problem is, which is decarbonizing. It's not about carbon offsets, it's about decarbonizing our operations. And again, this crazy goal of true zero. Some of the mechanisms that we're using to tackle this, it's not, we're not doing anything new. We're using offsets to start off with, and then we're going to replace, reduce them, and then we're going to avoid the problems in the end. But then when it comes down to how you do that with a company that's scaling as rapidly as we are, how do you decarbonize at scale? Like, we will literally have actually, we've recently gone back into our offices in Sydney. That's our head office. We've got about 800 people work out of this one office. 60% of those employees have never met each other because of COVID. So that's how quickly our headcount is growing, let alone everything else. So decarbonising at scale is a massive challenge for us. One of the things that I have bored so many people at Canva about, but I think is really beautiful, is that we now have a distributed workforce. If we say that we are powering our product with renewable energy, what does that look like in a work from home environment? Climate Active is the regulatory authority in Australia, is saying that about 80% of your work from home emissions come from energy. So if we're serious about tackling climate change, then how do we make sure that the energy that is being used to build our product is actually coming from renewable sources? And next month, we've actually, we've spent about a year working with a few different energy retailers and a bunch of people that have got smarter brains than me that know how to manage the complexity of the Australian energy grid. We've actually developed a way of making sure that our employees are powered by renewable energy. And that's a big thing. And what it does is it reduces our emissions a little bit, but it establishes some infrastructure for when we get into future years about how we can really sort of have impact in one quite significant area. This year, we launched an initiative where for every one print order, we've committed to planting one tree. And that commitment includes all print orders for the history of Canvas print. This year, we've got about 1 million trees in the ground, another 2.5 million in escrow. There's currently like 205 species of flora and fauna, a lot of them are endangered species, and we're regenerating about 2,500 hectares of land. A really important part in our print one, plant one journey is that none of these projects, we are picking them up in our carbon accounting. So they won't be a offset. Yeah, cool. There's some other slides in the back that people can follow up about, but this is one piece that was quite important, because what we're also doing when it comes to supporting our decarbonisation story, we're actually acknowledging the fact that even we can plant all the trees we want, but that's only going to solve a part of the problem. And that when it comes to purchasing carbon offsets for the time that we're going to be engaging with the market, we want to make sure that we've got this tree planting initiative, but we're also focusing on what the real problem is, which is decarbonising and celebrating regeneration, celebrating traditional knowledge systems, celebrating just repairing and rebuilding the planet. And that sort of approach flows into all the different pieces that we're doing in the future. So I'm going to tap out now. There's more to talk to. I talk too much, but the big takeout for Canva is that decarbonisation and celebrating biodiversity and regeneration are the two things that we're focusing on.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jed. A lot of information, a lot of great things. I especially like the piece of how you convinced the founders to take action. I think this is super creative, and I think it's something that a lot of people in our green teams can learn from. And I think it's a really important point to keep this personal element in the debate, right? We are really talking about a challenge that affects all of us, affects our families, and I think we should use this in order to make sure that action is really being taken. Okay, so now we have a few more minutes left for the core of today's event, which is the announcement of our TFCA campaign. For those of you who don't know what the TFCA campaign is, it's the Time for Climate Action campaign that we launched in this year for the first time around Earth Day. And it was a really big success. It was the first time we did it, and we got 202 brands out of our community to work together. And the whole idea was, okay, we have a lot of companies that have a huge reach, and we're always consistently thinking about how can we make use of the specific strength that we have in our community. And one of those is that we can reach out to our customers. And what we did is with these brands, we asked them, how can you use your product? How can you use your service for climate action? And we had big players like Spotify in the US who created a section in their app linking to our campaign page, asking their members to take climate action. We also had many European big players that were working with us. Ecosia did a great job in putting a banner right at the top, linking to our page. And together we managed in just a few days to reach 200,000 people that came to our campaign page. And on this campaign page, people were able to take action. There were a few actions, and the idea was that all of these actions, they must have an immediate impact. So we're talking about things like changing your energy provider directly on the page. You just do a few clicks and you can do it straight away. Calling up your local politicians, we built a little tool for that. So all kinds of little things that people can do, because we all know the attention span of the usual visitor of the website is very short. And we got 13,000 actions taken, which is a really great success. We were supported by many influencers, and even though all of this was organized in a relatively short amount of time, we got 40 plus people, mainly from the German speaking area, to support us on Earth Day. And we also got a very generous package of support from Ströer Medien, which showed our campaign video in Berlin, everywhere on the main station. And that was really cool for us to see as a team how big this impact got. But of course, we all know the climate crisis doesn't really slow down, and it's not going to slow down at all in the next year. So we have to aim for more. And then the goal for next year is to go from 24 million to 100 million. And it's literally impossible to do that without you. And this year we have the advantage that we have a bit more time. We know already what we're going to do. Last year we had just 3 or 4 months to go from zero to everything. And this year we can give you a bit more time also to think about how you can participate and how you can help us to reach this huge goal. Now, we have a few ideas already ourselves, a few things that we can improve on our side. So we will probably play a bit more with the viral mechanic on social media. You can think about it like people who just changed their provider, nominating others to do the same, like really trying to build a loop on Earth Day where everyone feels the pressure to do something. And since we make it so easy for people to take action, we really believe that there is the potential to make a significant difference. We will also try something new that we tested last year with one of our core supporters, Idealo, that is always very happy to help us with when it comes to testing new approaches. And what we did is we tried to embed these tools that we have built directly on the website of our partners. So currently, I mean, if you're product-oriented people, you know that optimizing the funnel is always hard. And what we tried with Idealo is to say, okay, we just take the last step off and we let people take action directly in their app or directly on their website. So this worked well last year already, and we'll probably make this a bit easier for you, so you can all embed these tools in your website to make sure that we reach even more people around Earth Day. Now, of course, biggest question: why should you participate? Well, I think it's pretty obvious. Like you all joined here today because you want to take climate action, and I think this is a great opportunity to do so. It's also, if you think about it, it's Earth Day, so everyone expects you to do something. You have your customers expecting you to do something, your employees expecting you to do something, maybe your children. So it's really, I think it's a great opportunity. And it's so hard to launch a good climate campaign. There's a lot of things to keep in mind. There's a lot of work that comes with it. And if we do it together, we can have a much higher impact with a much lower effort than if you would all do that by your own. And ultimately, you will also gain customer trust and loyalty. So a lot of positive things to join next year on our campaign. Of course, we will again support you all the way. Like we did it last year. We will provide you with all the creative materials for social media. You get the tools, you get also guidance and ideas about how to step up your climate game before this important week. So we will, it's an all-in package. We will make sure that you you can deliver. But we're also asking for something in return. I think it's really important to understand that for us as a core operational team, we don't just do this campaign to reach out to the masses, but we also do it to activate our community. Last year, we've seen a peak in actions, a peak in activity, companies starting, oh, I have to, until Earth Day, I'm going to open up the gates, people will see what I'm doing. So it's a really great occasion also to step up your climate game, to follow some of the tips that we have, use the actions that we are providing on our member platform, and really take action in order to show to the outside world what you're doing. Because in the end, every customer that comes to this website, they will see the information, the disclosure basically of what you are doing as a company. And it's really important to show to the world that you're taking climate action serious. So a bit more practical advice on how you can participate. Last year, it was a bit more challenging to take part in this campaign because it was kind of an MVP. We were sending a lot of Excel sheets to all of you. You could check mark things in this Excel in order to show what kind of actions you're planning to do. This year, we're making this much easier. So in our member platform, there's a separate section where you can simply select the actions that you want to do. So there's a total list of more than 100 ideas from the last year, from running workshops to putting a big banner on your website. All these kind of ideas, they are collected there, and you can simply walk through the list and place check marks on what you want to do. It's important for us to see what kind of material we have to provide, and for you to have a bit of a to-do list, what you have to provide until Earth Day. Another very important improvement is we have a lot of B2B, VC companies in our network, and last year it was a bit trickier for these to also participate in a significant way. So now we want to make it a bit easier, because there are great ideas, great things that you can do in order to activate your partners in your network for this campaign. So you can simply filter on this campaign participation package page, so you can see what you can do as a B2B or VC company. Now, last but not least, as I said in the beginning, a lot about our community is about collaboration, working together to achieve more. And to build up on this, we will have another event in the beginning of next year that will be announced soon, where we will bring together participants and we let them share ideas that they have. As I said, Spotify put this big banner in their app. Idealo put a big banner on their main page, just to keep things flowing, talk about what you can do, and make sure that that you can potentially even collaborate on ideas. Yeah, there will be also a dedicated Slack channel in our LFCA Slack, which is important that you can use for collaboration. And now coming towards the end, we do have already more than 200 applications, which is amazing, because last year when we started, we had 200 at the very end, and now we are just kicking things off, and we are already more than 200. But I think we can, yeah, if we all share the news in our networks, we can get to around 500 companies participating next year, allowing us to really increase the reach. So please fill out the type form. We will send after this event in the next days an email with a big button. So just click on this link and follow the steps. It's easy. We make it as easy as possible for you to participate. We will answer all of your questions. So yeah, fair enough and simple. Good. What else? Yeah, maybe one more thing. We are working a lot with volunteers for this campaign. Like, as you all know, the core team of LFCA is still relatively small, and last year we had about 30 people who helped us with realizing this campaign, from design to PR, marketing, and so on. So if you know anyone, or if you yourself want to become active and help us in making this possible, please reach out to me or to Anna, to any LFCA address that you can find online, and we can make sure to include you in our planning. Okay, now it's 11 and I managed. So thank you all for this event. I really hope we can activate as many as possible to join this campaign, but also as a reminder about the announcements that I made in the very beginning. We're really looking forward to roll out these mastermind groups. Make sure to get your people excited, join them and test it out, take action with us, and let's really make sure that the next year will be a year of climate action. It's much needed. We all know that the time is really running. So thanks a lot.